The glass doors of the Manhattan high-rise swung shut behind me, trapping me in a world of polished marble and sharp ambition. I was late. My sketchbook clutched to my chest, paint stains smudging my fingers as I scanned the directory for room 12 BMY, first art gallery pitch. One wrong turn, one misread sign, and I stumbled into a room where a man in a tailored suit pinned me with a stare colder than the November wind outside. Elliot Carter. His voice, smooth as whiskey but edged with steel, cut through the silence. He stood at the head of a sleek conference table, his dark eyes locking onto mine like I was the only person in the universe. I froze, my name hanging in the air, my heart tripping over itself because I was Elliot Carter. But I definitely wasn't supposed to be here. You? Yes. I stammered, clutching my sketchbook tighter. The room was empty except for him, a towering figure who radiated power like a storm cloud about to break. His nameplate gleamed, Nathaniel Pierce, CEO. My stomach dropped. This was no art gallery. This was the executive floor of Pierce Enterprises, and I'd just walked into the lion's den. You're late, Nathaniel said, his tone clipped but not unkind. He gestured to a chair across from him, his movements precise, like he was used to being obeyed. Sit. We don't have all day. I think there's been a mistake. I started, but he waved a hand, dismissing my words before they could land. His eyes softened just a flicker, but it was enough to make my pulse race. He thought I was someone else. His blind date. Maybe. The idea was absurd. But the way he looked at me, like he was seeing something he'd been searching for, made my throat tight. No mistakes, he said, his voice dropping low, almost intimate. My assistant confirmed your name. Elliot Carter. Right. Let's not waste time. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his gaze stripping away my defenses. I should have corrected him, should have bolted for the door, but something in his intensity held me there, like gravity pulling me into his orbit. I sat, my mind screaming that this was insane. I was a 24-year-old artist, barely scraping by in Brooklyn. Not some polished date for a CEO who probably owned half the city. But Nathaniel didn't give me a chance to explain. He launched into questions about my life, my passions, my dreams, like he was interviewing me for more than just a date. His cold exterior cracked with every answer I gave, revealing glimpses of curiosity, maybe even warmth. You're not what I expected, he said after a pause, his lips twitching into something dangerously close to a smile. But I like surprises. My cheeks burned. I'm really not who you think I am. I tried again, but he stood, buttoning his suit jacket with a grace that made my mouth dry. Dinner, he said, not a question. Tonight. I'll send a car. Before I could protest, he was gone, leaving me in the empty conference room with my heart pounding and a sinking feeling that I'd just been swept into something I couldn't control. I glanced at my sketchbook, where I'd doodled a pair of eyes as eyes without realizing it. What the hell was happening? By the time I made it to the real room, 12B, my gallery pitch was a disaster. My mind was stuck on Nathaniel, his commanding presence, the way his voice softened when he said my name. I fumbled through my presentation, the curator's polite smile barely hiding her disinterest. I left with no deal, just a bruised ego and a text from an unknown number, 7 p.m. Don't be late. N. P. I stared at the message, torn between panic and a dangerous spark of curiosity. I could have texted back, explain the mix-up. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the memory of his gaze, or the way my chest tightened when he'd said, "I like surprises." Against every shred of logic, I wanted to see where this mistake would lead. That night, a sleek black car pulled up outside my cramped apartment. I'd thrown on my only decent jacket, still smelling faintly of turpentine, and climbed in, my nerves a live wire. The restaurant was a glittering oasis in Midtown, all crystal chandeliers and hushed conversations. Nathaniel was already there, his suit impeccable, his expression unreadable until he saw me. Then, something softened in his eyes, like a wall coming down. "You came," he said, standing to pull out my chair. His voice held a note of surprise, as if he'd expected me to vanish. I wanted to blurt out the truth, to tell him I was just an artist who'd stumbled into his world. But the way he looked at me like I was someone worth knowing kept me silent. Dinner was a blur of rich food and richer conversation. Nathaniel asked about my art, my childhood in a small Ohio town, my dreams of painting the world's forgotten corners. I told him things I hadn't told anyone, not even my best friend, Jamie. He listened, really listened, his eyes never leaving mine. When he spoke, it was about his own guarded world pressure from his board, the weight of his family's legacy, the loneliness of a life at the top. For a moment, I forgot he thought I was someone else. "You're different," he said as we lingered over dessert, his voice low and rough. "I don't meet many people who see things the way you do." My heart stuttered. "Nathaniel, I need to tell you," but he reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, and the words died in my throat. His touch was electric, grounding me and setting me adrift all at once. I wanted to lean into it, to let this impossible moment stretch forever. But the lie between us felt like a ticking bomb. When the night ended, he walked me to the car, his hand grazing the small of my back. "Tomorrow," he said, not a question. "Lunch. I'll pick you up." I nodded, too caught up in the pull of him to argue. As the car pulled away, I sank back, my mind a tangle of guilt and longing. I'd walked into the wrong room, but now I was falling into something I wasn't sure I could escape. The next morning, I woke to the buzz of my phone and another text from Nathaniel, noon. "Meet me at the park." No room for negotiation, just like the man himself. I stared at the ceiling of my tiny apartment, the weight of the lie pressing harder. I had to tell him the truth, but every time I pictured his face, those sharp cheekbones, that rare, fleeting smile of me, resolve crumbled. Central Park was alive with autumn's fire, leaves crunching underfoot as I waited by the Bethesda fountain. Nathaniel arrived exactly at noon, his presence cutting through the crowd like a blade. He wore a dark coat, his hair catching the sunlight. And when he saw me, his eyes lit with something that made my chest ache. "You're punctual," he said, a teasing edge to his voice. "I wasn't sure you'd show." I almost didn't, I admitted, shoving my hands into my pockets to hide their trembling. "Nathaniel, we need to talk. Walk with me," he interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. He led me down a quiet path, the city's hum fading behind us. We talked about everything and nothing, me favorite paintings, his secret love for old jazz records, the way we both hated crowded subways. With every step, the lie grew heavier, but so did the pull between us. His shoulder brushed mine, and I felt it in my bones, a warmth I couldn't shake. At a small cafe tucked in the park, We sat with steaming cups of coffee, the air thick with unspoken things. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" he asked suddenly, his voice low, his eyes searching mine. "Like what?" I managed, my throat tight. "Like you're about to run." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Or like you're about to stay." My heart stopped. I opened my mouth to confess, to tell him I wasn't his blind date, that I'd wandered into his life by accident. But then his phone rang, shattering the moment. His face darkened as he answered, his voice sharp and cold, the CEO snapping back into place. "Handle it," he barked, then hung up, his jaw tight. "Trouble?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Always," he said, but his eyes softened when they met mine. "You're a good distraction, Elliot." The way he said my name felt like a promise, and it broke something in me. I couldn't keep lying. Not when every look, every touch, was pulling me deeper. "Nathaniel, I'm not who you think I am," I blurted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "I walked into the wrong room yesterday. I'm just an artist. I don't know who your real date was." He froze, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought he'd walk away, leave me there with my heart in my hands. But then he laughed a low, rich sound that caught me off guard. "You think I care about that?" he said, leaning back in his chair. "I knew you weren't him the second you walked in." I blinked, my mind reeling. "What?" "My assistant sent me a photo of my actual date," he said, his eyes glinting with amusement. "Some finance bro with a fake tan. You were different. Nervous. Real. Covered in paint. I wanted to know you." My face burned, a mix of relief and embarrassment flooding me. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because you didn't run," he said simply. "And I didn't want you to." The air between us shifted, charged with something new honesty. Maybe. Or something more dangerous. He reached for my hand, his fingers lacing with mine, and I didn't pull away. We stayed like that, the world fading until it was just us. Two strangers who'd stumbled into something neither of us could name. But the truth didn't erase the complications. Nathaniel's world was one of power and secrets, and I was nobody. A dreamer with paint on his hands and no place in his orbit. That night, back in my apartment, I got a call from Jamie, my best friend, who'd heard through the grapevine that I'd been seen with the Nathaniel Pierce. "Are you insane?" Jamie's voice crackled through the phone. "He's got a reputation, Elliot. Cold. Ruthless. People say he's hiding something." I brushed it off, but Jamie's words lingered, planting seeds of doubt. The next day, Nathaniel invited me to his penthouse, and I went, unable to resist the pull. His home was a fortress of glass and steel, but he was softer there, showing me a rare vinyl collection, his fingers brushing mine as he handed me a record. When he kissed me, it was like the world tilted, all heat and need and something deeper, something that scared me. But Jamie's warning echoed. Nathaniel's phone buzzed constantly, his expression darkening with every call he ignored. When I asked, he deflected, his walls going back up. "It's just business," he said, but his eyes told a different story. The days blurred into weeks, each moment with Nathaniel a mix of fire and fear. We stole time in quiet corners of the city dive bars, late-night galleries, His car parked under the Brooklyn Bridge, where we talked until dawn. He was still the cold CEO to the world. But with me, he was unguarded. His laughter rare, but real. His touch a language I was learning to speak. Yet the shadows lingered. His phone calls grew more frequent. His silences heavier. I wanted to trust him. But the whispers about his past ruthless deals. A family scandal gnawed at me. One night, at a gallery opening I'd convinced him to attend, everything unraveled. I was showing him my latest painting. A chaotic swirl of blues and golds inspired by our first night together. When a man in a sharp suit approached. "Pierce," he said, his voice dripping with venom. "Still playing your games?" Nathaniel's face turned to stone, his hand tightening on mine. "Not here, Victor," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Victor smirked, glancing at me. "Does he know who you really are? Or are you still hiding?" I felt Nathaniel tense, his grip almost painful. "Elliot, wait outside," he said, but I didn't move. I couldn't. Victor's words cut too deep, and the doubt I'd buried surged to the surface. "Tell me," I said, my voice shaking. "What's he talking about?" Nathaniel's eyes met mine, raw and pleading. "It's not what you think," he said, but Victor laughed. A cruel sound that echoed in the crowded gallery. "Ask him about his brother," Victor said. "Ask him why he's really alone." The room spun. Nathaniel pulled me outside, his voice urgent as he explained. His brother, Daniel, had been his closest confidant, openly gay in a family that valued appearances above all. When Daniel came out, their father disowned him, and Nathaniel, still young and trapped under his father's thumb, didn't fight back. Daniel left, and a year later, he was gone, lost to addiction, a tragedy Nathaniel blamed himself for. The scandal had been buried, but the guilt hadn't. "I didn't tell you because I couldn't," Nathaniel said, his voice breaking. "I failed him. Elliot, I don't want to fail you." The weight of his words hit me. Not just the pain, but the trust he was offering. I saw the man behind the sea, the one who carried his grief like a second skin, who'd let me in despite it all. I took his hand, my thumb brushing over his knuckles. "You're not failing me," I said, "but you have to let me in." From that night, we rebuilt. Nathaniel opened up, sharing stories of Daniel, his regrets, his hopes. I showed him my World Messy Studios, late-night sketching sessions, the beauty in the chaos. He funded a community art program in Daniel's name, a quiet way to honor his brother. I painted again, my work bolder, infused with the love we were carving out. The ending wasn't perfect. His world still pulled at him, and mine was still a struggle. But one night, under the same rooftop where I'd first felt his gaze, he pulled me close, his lips brushing my forehead. "I don't care how we started," he said. "You're the only meeting I ever got right." And as the city hummed below, I knew we'd found something worth fighting for, a love born from a mistake, strong enough to rewrite both our stories.